Okay, Kev. So, wait, no, that's not good. We don't even know what this is. Um, hey guys, welcome to Quakesaholic, where you will find the most deranged pair of Quakes fans I've ever heard of. The subreddit, Quakes subreddit, the comments, it cannot outcompete us on a competition of delusion. And the most delusional fan of all, Corey, tell the zero listeners where you were yes last weekend.
I can't take you seriously, but um,
Some would call it
in
faith.
every sense.
So it's about perspective, I guess. Depends how you flip it, how you sell it. Most
Yeah.
faithful fans, I think, is more appropriate.
But yeah, no, we both were on the road past two games at Galaxy and then at Nashville. Well, we were both at Galaxy and then I went to Nashville on my own. But yeah, what Luis was saying, we're Quakesaholics, self-proclaimed, because all we do is talk about this, think about this. Yeah, so where do
There's a
you want
lot
to
to
get
talk
started?
about. The Quakes will never
Yes,
be
there's.
boring. They will never be boring, at least. There's always something to talk about.
All right, yeah, so
So
where do you want to get
first,
started?
well, as you know, I was unable to go to the Nashville game, but I know you were there, so maybe you want to talk a little bit about the trip and the game, and then I know we wanted to touch on some of the comments by by Jack Skahan, the goal scorer, and then I don't know, maybe we'll see where the conversation goes from there.
Yeah, sounds good. So yeah, Geodis Park, home of Nashville SC. It's actually a stadium that we've both been to. Last year after we went to the Atlanta game, took a quick little road trip
Like like
through.
2 3 hours.
Yeah, quick 3 hours up to Knoxville and then another 2.5 to Nashville. But yeah, we went on a non-game day. I think we went on a Sunday. It was like day after. Was
Yeah,
it? Might have been a weekday. But point is, there was
very
no
pretty
game.
stadium. Very nice stadium from what I remember. Very nice.
We kind of walked outside of the stadium, and then we went into the team store, and we could kind of see a glimpse into what the stadium was looking like from in there. But it doesn't compare to when you're actually in there during, an actual event when it's full.
Compared to other away games that you've been to, how would you rate this home crowd?
Oh, that's a good question. I think it's definitely top half. So actually, I think I have a picture. I went behind the supporter section before the game, and so this is what it looks like. It's a completely standing section, drums in the middle, very percussion heavy, I would say. That's this area right here. So it's five sections. It's pretty large. It didn't get completely filled. This is the picture that I took at the time of kickoff. So you can see that it was pretty full. They're pretty loud. And then where we were, the Quakes traveling fans, you can see this little corner up here. We had these these top two rows. I'm gonna guess it was probably like 15 to 20 of us there. And then pregame, actually, just walking around the stadium, I'd seen a bunch of other Quakes fans. Actually ran into Paul Marie's in-laws, talked to them for a little bit. Definitely sent them
Oh,
some love
really?
from. Yeah. It was really
Crazy.
interesting because I'd walked in and we are just because when I go to new stadiums, I like to take a whole lap around the stadium, and so I had
Mm.
seen.
Oh,
Um,
that's a nice
I
angle.
think it was.
A nice picture.
Yeah, yeah, it's like a group of three, all wearing Paul Marie jerseys, and so whenever I see that, I'm like, I wonder if that's like friends and family because you don't usually see everyone in the same family wearing the same jersey. And so I went up to them, said hi, and then it turns out that yeah, there's in-laws. So yeah, sent them some love to Paul Marie from all of us. And then later on, actually, so right here where this N is where all the players come out from the locker rooms. And so I went down there to try to say hi to players as they're coming out. And I saw someone wearing a Daniel Muni jersey, and so I walked up to them and I was like, "Oh, hello! Like I'm also part of the Daniel Muni fan club, just to kind of break the ice, say hi."
Yeah.
And then it turns out that it was actually his mom that had traveled. So talked to her a little bit. Told her that I was at the Seattle game when he made his debut. Um, yeah, sent
Masterclass
them.
performance. Uh,
Yeah, sent them some love from all of us as well. Um, and yeah, I didn't see like Skahan's family because it's from Tennessee, but in the
Memphis.
post game press conference, he had mentioned there are like 30 or so of his friends' family. So all in all,
Yeah,
probably like upwards of 50 fans that were there for the Quakes.
big
I think
turnout. That's nothing to scoff at, especially for an Eastern Conference team like that. That's pretty
yeah,
decent.
yeah, 5 hour flight, four and a half, something like that. And I think the total attendance was somewhere in like the 28,000. So yeah, decently sized crowd. And yeah, here's some more pictures of like the actual festivities. They have similar to us, like they have this banner. They have like the flames and stuff. They have those like steam, the steam that gets blown behind our goals, kind of looks like a V shape.
Oh yeah,
they they
yeah,
do that
that
as
too.
well. Yeah, they do that as well. I think
I
they
bet
did
that
that at
was.
Galaxy too, right?
Did
If I
they?
remember.
I don't know. I don't remember. I was so with the ultras and everything. There's so much to take your attention away from what's going on the field. But
Yeah.
uh, no, yeah, the Nashville Stadium. I remember when I saw it in person and from these pictures too. I know it's really new. It looks really nice. I like it.
Hmm.
Every time I watch it on TV, all like the yellow seats and everything, like it just feels like different from all the other
Yeah.
stadiums. You can tell it's immediately recognizable. You see 1 second, you know it's a Nashville Stadium. Very nice.
Yeah. And then yeah, behind the support section, they also had various banners and like slogans and things like that. Really cool to see. And then they on every corner they would do like a stadium wide like MSC chant.
All right, well, the that just leaves the game then. What did you think of the game? Um, yeah, what were your impressions? I mean, it's the first point on the road at all. First tie. It's nice. It was definitely a nice feeling seeing that scoreline at the end. So, what did you think? Was it nervy? Was it, did you were you do you think the Earthquakes were hanging on? Do you think we deserved maybe 3 points? What did you think? How did you feel about it?
It was similar to the Galaxy game in the sense that the first half was theirs and the second half felt ours. And
Mhm.
I think others have already talked about this, and I think definitely a tie was deserved. Just because we both had chances. I haven't looked at like the underlying numbers in terms of shots. I can actually pull that up. Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
these numbers these numbers don't look favorable. But for my perception, I
I mean,
think
it's an
it
away game
was
too,
just
right? Like, I mean,
yes, yes,
I feel like with these things, especially considering, we've been to a few away games now, I feel like we kind of know when it feels like we stole a point or when we earned a point, you know? I mean,
hmm
holding on is like you can hold on to a result and earn a point for sure. So, like it doesn't always
yeah.
have to be favorable, but
I think there's something to be said too of we were trailing and then we came back to tie on the road, and those
yeah,
points always feel better than when you get
for
equalized.
sure. For sure. Yeah. And it was a second what time was the goal round? Like 66 or
Uh,
something like that?
Scan got it in the 63rd. Yeah, so definitely felt deserved. So yeah, I think in terms of actual discussion, I think the main thing we wanted to talk about, at least the main thing I wanted to talk about, was some of the post game interview comments, specifically
Yes.
from Jack. He had this quote after the game. I'll just read it here. This team is so much better than the points that we have on the table. I'm sure the fans disagree with that, but we know soccer and we know what we see in training. We can score against anybody. And then he went on to say, we can win that game. LAFC is a really good team, but we can win that game. So the question here is, do we agree or do we disagree with this? And since I proposed the topic, I can go first here. First of all, I do agree with this. But before I go into why, I want to give some more context. This sounds almost exactly the same as what Lucci said post game against Austin. I believe in our team. I believe in our staff. We can beat anybody. We can beat anybody. And I know that sounds crazy when you're sitting here 1-6. And then he went on to say, we just came to Austin and we scored goals. We're dangerous and we created problems for them. When I hear a player reiterating what coaches say, that convinces me that the coach still has the locker room. And I think that's something that fans have been worried about, especially with the current record and where we're standing in the tables. And it's also important because it shows that we still have the ability to score goals. I think that's what's most important. And so I agreed with Lucci then, and I agree with Jack now. I do believe that we can win games because we can score goals in difficult environments or difficult situations. And I think the best examples of that were the Austin game, the Galaxy game on the road, I mean, and then coming back in this game to tie the game. I think those are all really good examples of that. And I want to dive into the Austin game. I know it's a little bit past now. I think what was that?
It was like
Match day
forever ago.
7. Yeah, so that was 3 match days ago, 4 match days ago.
Yeah.
And so I want to start with saying that Austin is a very difficult place to play in. It's one of the few Western Conference teams that I would say actually has a massive home field advantage due to the crowd. I think in the West, again, putting us aside, I think the hardest places to play are Austin, Portland, and LAFC. And we went into Austin with, yeah, and we went into Austin with 2 starters out on a red card, and we were still able to score 3 goals. This season, no other team has done that to Austin, home or away. At most, they've conceded 2 goals. It's a little bit early in the season still, and so I went back and I looked at Austin's performance in 2023. And as a reminder, last year was not a good year for them. They were 12th in the West, had a -6 goal differential, and they were the 3rd highest scored on team in the West. And so all of those things indicate that defensively, they were not good. And despite that, in MLS games, there were only 3 teams that had scored 3 goals against them at home. The first one was St. Louis, who placed first in the West. The second one was Galaxy. They weren't good last year, but in the second half of the season, they were actually good, and that's when they did score those 3. And then the last team to do that was LAFC, who went on to lose the MLS Cup final. And so only strong teams have been able to pull that off and score multiple goals. And I think after that game, it was really easy to point to, oh, we gave up 3 goals in, what was it, 6 minutes. And it felt bad because we lost. We were all feeling very negatively. But I think that game, and then with Galaxy as well, of being in a really difficult situation, being 3 down at the half, and then the team still fights and manages to score 3 goals in the second half. Those difficult environments, those difficult situations, and still being able to score goals is why I think Lucci and Jack are saying these things. Yeah, we didn't win those games, and so it feels bad. But there are also other games too where we had the potential to have high scoring games, which could have gotten us points. The one that sticks out to me the most is the Kansas City game. We lost that one, unfortunately, but in that game, Rodriguez had a goal called off. NG hit the post. Bruno Wilson had a one-on-one with the keeper that got blocked. And any one of those going our way, that would have been a draw on the road. And so I think with more goals, we have the ability to win more games. And it sounds obvious, but defensively, we've been struggling. But had the goals gone our way, I think it could have compensated for that. And I think the perception would have been a lot different because we'd be getting more points.
So I will just go out and say that I agree. It is impressive. I think that it is impressive, and I think that it is like testament to the Earthquakes play style. For one, we are a threat going forward, and I think that that very much speaks onto our play style. However, I will say that I was looking through the statistics earlier, and from my information, you might be able to like reference to see if I'm correct, but we've scored 14 goals this season, correct?
We have scored 14 goals. That is correct.
Yeah, so we've scored 14 goals this season, and I will just put it out there that our expected goals this season is 14.6. So the goals we've gotten are the goals, more or less that we've deserved, which is fine because we've scored a lot of goals. And I will say that I don't think that that's a problem. I don't think, and like you said, I think that, like Lucci said, like Skahan was probably alluding to, the fact that we're scoring a lot of goals does go to show that we are a threat. And that, yeah, on any given day, just the nature of the sport, the game that we're playing, we can beat anyone. And, like in Austin per se, or in Dallas, there's been a lot of examples where we've gotten those goals, and if we just held on a little bit longer, sometimes even a few minutes, a few seconds longer, we would have gotten a point here, a point there. that's something we've seen before also last season as well. I know obviously we'll never forget the away day. Speaking of the away days at Atlanta, you know, I think that scoring goals, we've been pretty good. I remember last season near the tail end where we got a lot of draws when we were getting that playoff push. We weren't scoring as much, but at the beginning of the season, we've been scoring a lot. Beginning of this season, we've been scoring a lot. So I think that that's fine. However, I do believe that our major issue is on the defensive end of things. Last time I checked, I don't have the exact numbers, but I'm pretty sure our goals against is around half the goals that we've actually conceded. So we're conceding from chances and opportunities that most other teams don't concede from. And, I think Lucci's even talked about this before, how, sometimes you see players losing their individual battles. And I think just overall, I think, part of, I guess, the pretty part of the way the Quakes play is also intertwined with the fact that we concede so many goals because the Earthquakes, they play with a lot of intensity. That's one of Lucci's core principles. And yeah, they play with a lot of intensity. They're very dynamic. He always talks about the players he picks because, Jack Skahan, for example, he has a lot of speed. He has a lot of intensity. Last season, obviously, there's Cade Cowell, a lot of speed, a lot of intensity. And, on the press as well, Earthquakes, one thing that we usually do is start games with a lot of intensity. The first 15 minutes, almost always we feel like, oh my God, like we almost always carve out a chance in the very first 15 minutes, home or away. And, that isn't to say that I disagree with those principles or that they're really right or wrong. But I do think that having those principles of high intensity, high press, high energy, everything is kind of like go, go, go. I do think that that leads to a lot of chaos. And I think that that's where we have seen that on the defensive side, where a lot of our goals, from my impression, the way I feel about it is a lot of them are goals we concede where they're on transition, where maybe players are caught out of possession. I remember there was the game against Kansas, right, where I kind of talked to you. I think it was a second goal that Kansas City scored, where I kind of pointed out to you to look at Bruno Wilson and Rodriguez pointing out their positioning and kind of like how far up the field they go. And sometimes it works in our favor, right? Like last game against Nashville, perfect example. Rodriguez, he was the one that assisted Jack Skahan with the ball over the top. But that's the thing, like you can't have one without the other if you want to play the way Lucci wants to play. With that being said, I do think that I still agree with what Jack is saying, what Lucci is saying, because that's kind of the beauty of soccer is you can just score a goal or two and then the result goes in your favor. However, I do think that that makes us unpredictable. So can we beat anyone on any given day? Yes. But just in the same way that we can beat anyone on any given day, I still get the impression that we could also, lose a lead on any given day. Just concede a 90th minute goal off a set piece or off a counter or off some nutty play. So that's the thing.
And we've already done that twice. I was going to say we've already conceded twice in stoppage time. These two bolded numbers are the stoppage time that cost us games.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I would be very surprised if Earthquakes were not first in the lead, or sorry, first in the league for points lost after being in winning positions. So many away. I mean, there's Houston, there's Dallas, there's what else?
Kansas City.
Yeah, Kansas City.
Yep.
So that's the thing.
At Austin as well.
Oh yeah, at Austin is 2 goals up.
Yes, correct.
Yeah,
and we lost the lead twice. we equalized 3-3 and then we lost 4-3.
We were winning the entire game, and then Driussi pulls off, just turns into Ibrahimovic, and then just bangs him in. what can you do? That's the thing. So yeah, like for sure there's luck involved, and sometimes I feel like earthquakes just it feels like, like we're destined to like something to just go awry. But I do think that these are things that are symptomatic. It's a pattern, it's something that we keep seeing. And I feel like it's symptomatic of a lot of the time when I watch the goals back that we've conceded, I feel like the players are just a little bit too, it's a word that Lucci said last season, a little bit too stimulated. Remember he talked about that when we also last season had a run of conceding a lot of goals and stoppage time. And he talked about how like sometimes the players kind of like lose their head. I feel like that's just symptomatic of the way that we play with all this intensity, with all this, go, get the ball back, press, press, press. It's good. And I'm not saying that we should give that up per se, especially because that's just, that's Lucci's philosophy. That's the way he wants his team to play. And I think that he should stick with that. And I think that that's that's fine. However,
Yeah.
I do think that that's something that is a concern that they need to be looking at is sometimes it feels like it's a bit rash. For example, I was looking back at the LA Galaxy highlights, and I feel like the second Yarborough gives away that goal kick, all the players are just flying into their challenges, trying to get the ball back. And
Hmm.
then LA Galaxy just very quickly in transition, they just, one first touch passing through us, and then Gabriel Peck scores a goal. And it's just like, I don't know, maybe if they're, if a bit more composure, I guess, is a word that um that I want to emphasize.
Yeah. In summary, we kind of both agree, but I think we agree for different reasons. I agree
Yeah.
with it in the sense that we can score goals, and because of that, I believe that we can win games. And it sounds like you think of it more like the unpredictability is our X factor per se of why we can win games, but
Exactly.
it's also our
Kinda.
it's
Yeah.
also our Achilles because that's why we
It's
lose.
like,
And
yeah, like the
yeah,
thing, I guess I kind of feel like from what I've seen so far, the thing that Skahan and Lucci have alluded to or have pointed out is one side of the coin, and I'm kind of pointing out the other side of that same coin.
yeah. And then my delusional self is only looking at one side of the coin.
Yeah.
I think the last thing I want to touch on in terms of this Jack quote is what he was saying of like he sees why fans can disagree. Um,
Mhm.
and I think that's totally valid, obviously. The thing I want to look at though is kind of the perception of our performances. I think obviously there's a lot of negativity, and I I feel like it's mostly because of how we play at home and the way that our schedule aligned this year. Let me kind of explain what I mean by that. So this F column is how many points we had last year on the given match day. So at this point in the season last year, we had 15 points, and this year we only have 4 points. So that looked terrible. But I was curious, and I said, okay, like we've played 6 away games. How did we do last year? And so I pulled this up. Red is a loss, green is a win, yellow is a tie. And then you can see the actual cities here. Um, and in our first 6 away games, we only got 2 points last year. And that's exactly what we have this year after 6 away games. And so that means that 10 of our missing points is what we've given up at home. Um, and if you look at last year's opponents, like we played Whitecaps, we played Rapids, we played Toronto. I feel like the opponents that we had by this point in the season last year were a lot more favorable than what we've had this year. If you look at this year, like we opened against Galaxy and Vancouver, and if you look at the tables, it isn't, at least right now, RSL has recently kind of joined the mix, but up until this point, Galaxy and Vancouver were in the first 2 spots. And actually, Vancouver still has a game in hand, so they could very well be in first place. And so I feel like the home games that we've lost against really good opponents, which is sort of similar to what we had last year. Last year at home, we only lost to Galaxy and we lost to St. Louis. The Galaxy one, I mean, they weren't in the best shape last year, but at the point in the season that we did play them at home, they were actually on the way up. They were definitely digging themselves out of that spoon side of the table. And St. Louis, obviously, first place in the West. And then even looking at Colorado too, right? Like I think that one is the one that felt super bad because at least with the Galaxy and the Vancouver game, it's like okay, they're top of the table. Colorado, I feel at least personally, I went into that game thinking, okay, these are easy points, just because I hadn't been following Colorado. But they've made a lot of changes, and they aren't the spoon team that we remember from last year. Like they tied against Miami and they beat LAFC, and they recently only lost by 1 goal against Cincinnati, who's obviously a contender. And so I just feel like the opponents that we've had at home have been a lot tougher than last season, and that's why it feels bad. It's going to sound like I've been making excuses like this whole time, but I truly think that the perception of our situation is really bad because we're comparing to last year, which was like we didn't lose at home really last year. And so it just feels bad that we've been getting all these losses at the front of the season. So yeah, I think that's all I want to share is like perception is a big thing. I think that's why we're feeling bad about it. But at the same time, like now with the new signings, the perception feels a little bit better, even though not much has really changed in the standings.
I said
Uh,
this at the beginning. I don't know if you remember me saying this, but like when people started talking about how much time does Lucci have left to turn this around, I remember like we had a conversation about something has to change to be more positive so that they can maybe turn a page psychologically. And I think I said like it could be like I don't want Lucci to lose his job, but something has to change, and I feel like it's either that or maybe a new signing. And now we have that new signing. So maybe
yeah,
I think that that's gonna make the team feel a lot better, and I think that's gonna make the fans, kind of like reset their expectations a little bit and just be like, okay, we kind of see like this is how the season's going. Now we have a new signing, and now it gives us a few more matches to really like see how things are with this new player on the roster.
going back in time a little bit, since we haven't talked about the Galaxy game, since you were there, it was your first. Actually, it was your first game at Galaxy. You've been to plenty of
Ever.
away
Yeah,
games. You've been to plenty of
I
away games, and you've traveled hundreds of miles, but you saved this one for this year. So, what were your thoughts of your first away derby experience?
it could have had a better start for sure, but in terms of the game that I came to watch, but I felt like the feeling I had at the 30th minute mark and the 980 88th 90th minute mark couldn't have been more different, where I was like this could be a record in terms of a loss, but by the end of the game I was like, give it a few more minutes and we could actually get something out of this game, which sounded
Hmm.
impossible. And I feel like maybe that's emblematic of what we've both been kind of talking about in terms of yeah, we
Hmm.
can score goals, but it's a little bit volatile. It's a little bit unpredictable. You know,
Yeah, that feeling when a third goal went in, it felt bad, and I think it felt a little bit extra bad just because of what was going on in the stands at that time. Okay, here we go. Okay, so this is where we were, and this little strip you can't see it, but it's a very sharp diagonal,
yeah,
and so it's actually a pretty small section, and we actually had
very
our tickets in, yeah, very small. And we had our tickets in 227. And but when I say we, I mean the season ticket holders that requested tickets through the club, as well as the tickets that the ultras got. And so actually our seats were covered by the ultras banner, which obviously I don't care. Like I expect that we're just going to be in that section together, and I want to be with them because that's part of the experience. And so they were kind of towards the front. Then the drums were behind that, and then everyone else was behind that. And so I don't know, we're probably like 10 or 12 rows above where the front of the line per se was of our section. And everything was peaceful, doing our thing, singing. Of course, with the lyrics, it's supposed to be provocative, at least in my opinion. And the security came, and when I say provocative, it isn't anything different than what we do at PayPal. It isn't anything different than what we've done at previous games. I wasn't at the front. I didn't hear what security was saying for
It's a
one reason
derby.
or another.
Like
Yeah,
it's a
yeah,
derby.
it's a derby. Like you go to these games with, you should have the expectation that this is going to be like a provocative experience, and I personally find that to be really fun because it's part of the derby, you know.
Yeah.
Anyways, I don't know what was the catalyst for this, but around after the second goal, I think it was, security came and they told us, hey, like, you guys all have to move. And we had our tickets in 227 and they moved us to 226. And we didn't fit in that section. And what also didn't fit was part of our banner and like the drums and all that. Like we just couldn't fit. And so like we had to stand in the aisle and security was giving us a hard time. And it's like, dude, like, do you not see that there are too many of us? Like, where do you want us to go? Like, we can't go over the rail. And so it was just this whole fiasco of getting shoved into that section and we're distracted. And then like the third goal goes in right after that. And it just felt bad. But we kept singing because that's what we do. Went into the half feeling bad because we're down 3-0. But then, I mean, the guys came out and they responded. And even though we didn't get the result, I feel like they more than made up for all the shenanigans that we had to go through. I remember feeling that everyone in our section was very proud of what
Yeah,
they had accomplished.
for
And
sure.
especially after that red card, I felt like I couldn't even hear the LA supporters anymore. And I don't know if that was just because like we were going crazy singing and I could only hear my voice and like the voices of the people directly around me. But it felt like it was only us and no one else in that stadium. I don't know, maybe it feels differently. Maybe I just had the adrenaline, but I think they were really scared of another comeback and another Goonies moment. And we didn't get it, but for what it lasted and what it felt like is it was a great time.
They
Um,
were
and that
trembling. I
and it's
remember
hard to
that.
say that you
I mean, we were
yeah.
trembling, but it was shivers from the cold.
Oh yeah, it was cold.
Yeah, it was chilly. But no, it was a good like I said, yeah, started off not the best, but I think considering our season, it's like they talk about draws, I feel like wins. It's like a loss that kind of felt like a win almost. Never thought I'd be
Yes.
saying that, but it kind of felt like it felt not that bad. It felt pretty good, especially given the context of the season. And
Oh
then,
yeah, with
also
them.
to follow it up with Nashville, I think that is, the last. And again, like you mentioned, this Galaxy team is not the wooden spoon contenders of the first half of last season. This is, I think they have like
Literally
the
the
most.
opposite.
Yeah, they're leading the West, right? And
At least
maybe
what
that's
for this match day. For this match day, they were right now. They're what was it, second?
yeah, but like either way, they're up there.
Yeah,
And I think that also kind of yeah, I think a lot of the feeling around the team right now comes from the expectations that we have. And there definitely is some like historical expectation around like the teams we've been playing as well. Like you said, losing to Vancouver, losing to Colorado 3-0 at home. It's like this is
yeah,
not the Rapids of old. This is not the Vancouver of old. Like these teams, I remember when I saw the Rapids, I mean, you remember I was like amazed at how organized they were. I couldn't name a single
yes,
player, to be honest with you, maybe Cabral, but they were but they were very organized, very compact. They came there with a game plan. They executed it for the full 90. So these are, yeah, you're right. These are good teams that we're playing. This isn't you know, yeah, these are good teams. They've been playing well and they've continued to play well throughout the season thus far. Do you want to touch on LAFC?
Okay, what I'll say about LAFC is I expect this to be a difficult game, just as I expect every game against LAFC to be. I
We
think
have kind of
like
had their number recently though.
that is true. It's definitely Sounders vibes with them. Looking at their last games, just to contextualize it, I think they're fifth in the West. They beat Galaxy at home, and like this is what we were saying, right? Like PIDS beating LAFC. I mean, sure they got the red card, but like a win's a win. I think the one that scares me is this one. The red card was in the 61st, so by that point they were already 3-0 up. That's the thing that worries me. But
Or was that
I
was
mean,
that in LA or was that in Nashville?
This was in this was in LA. First team is the home team.
I mean, yeah, obviously, like we're gonna be playing at Levi's. We've seen some magic there.
Yeah, we're undefeated, so we have to win, right? Like
That's true. We have
Levi's
a
magic.
1-0, or we got one win against LAFC and a draw versus Manchester United, and
And
then
then we played Sounders at Levi's.
did we?
Yeah, we did. That was actually, if I'm not mistaken, the first game played at Levi's.
Oh, really?
And yeah, here we go, 2014 inaugural game. And I'm pretty sure we played the last game at Candlestick against Atletico. I mean, this page doesn't want to load. Okay, let's see. Let's go this way. Seattle. Okay, it seems like. Okay, here we go. Yeah. So at least if our memory is correct, we have not lost at Levi's. We beat Seattle in the inaugural game at Levi's 1-0. Beat LAFC last year 2-1, and then Manchester United. You said it was a draw against Manchester United?
Yeah,
Yeah.
hard fought. No. Jose Mourinho's first game of Manchester United.
Dude, I don't remember anything of that game other than the bird incident.
Oh my God. That was the only part I forgot.
Coming back to your original question, I have high hopes against LAFC, mainly off of the vibes from the national game, the signing. I think we can score goals. I think Levi's magic is real for us. Yeah, I'm just hoping for a good game. I think if we win, it really serves as the proof to all these things that we've been hearing in these press conferences.
Yeah, I think I'll just touch on it quickly. I think, LAFC I think that there's going to be a lot of goals. And I think that just based off the firepower that LAFC have and, you know, Quakes being Quakes, I think that, yeah, to kind of reiterate Jack Skahan's point, we could beat them. But I think that it's going to be entertaining for sure. I think that there's going to be a lot of goals.
Yeah, and I hope those goals are coming our way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's it for this time. We'll probably chat after the Open Cup game, just so we have more to talk about. And yeah, thanks for chatting.
Thank you.